The electricity crisis in Texas put a new spotlight on how ERCOT manages the state's power grid, and it wasn't always easy to get the details of how ERCOT works. One interesting moment on Wednesday came when Governor Abbott responded to a question about whether he was getting clear information. Listen.
ERCOT has not provided information about which location and which geographic location the additional power is coming onto or is not coming onto. So ERCOT is an independent private entity that, candidly, I have both investigated and prosecuted before when I was the Attorney General of Texas. And we're now investigating again. I'm not suggesting in any way that there's been any criminal activity or anything like that, but it is something that needs to be looked at with regard to it is kind of opaque, the way that it runs. It's not transparent. And one thing that everybody needs out of ERCOT is greater transparency, especially the residents across the state of Texas.
And more calls for transparency are coming from the Capitol as state lawmakers found out many of the ERCOT board members don't even live in Texas. Investigator Jody Barr has been digging into this and found out how it even happened in the first place.
Well, Josh, the reason is simple. The law allows it. The ERCOT board is made up of people who are tied to the energy industry and others who are what the state calls unaffiliated. That means they cannot have any ties to Texas Energy. That's how these 5 of the 15-member board took charge of Texas's energy grid. ERCOT board chair Sally Telberg lives in Michigan. Vice Chairman Peter Crampton, an economics professor, his social media profile shows he lives in California. Terry Bulger lives in Illinois. Raymond Hepper lives in Maine. And Vanessa Encetti Pereira doesn't even live in the country. Her LinkedIn profile shows she lives in Canada.
How can you best serve Texans with a board chair that lives in another state?
Right now, the way we can best serve Texans is to focus on getting generation and load in balance, on working with our control room operators and other staff with the generators to get power back on for everyone. That's the priority right now. And I think if folks want to look at how ERCOT is run and who runs it, I mean, that obviously is part of the investigation of what we're doing in the future. You know, all those things are on the table, but I think there was no impact of the chair of the ERCOT Board of Directors.
Representative Matt Schaefer is the latest Texas lawmaker to indicate taking another look at ERCOT's residency requirements over the statewide energy failures.
That is definitely a problem. We have to look at the leadership and we have to look at the function and we have to look at how we're setting policies that allow us to not use the resources that we have. It would be like if you lived in a grocery store and you were starving to death. It would only be by your own choice. We live in a state with the most abundant energy sources on the planet. There's no reason we should be starving for energy.
ERCOT's bylaws don't require these unaffiliated members to live in Texas, but the rules state residents in the state of Texas is preferred. We also found 3 current ERCOT board members were also on the board in 2011 when the feds published a report detailing failures inside ERCOT's power grid after a similar storm hit Texas. Board member Nick Fehrenbach of Dallas, Clifton Carney from Waco, and Kevin Gresham were all part of the board then. That storm left more than 3 million Texans without power for days. That list also includes current ERCOT CEO Bill Magnus, who was vice president and general counsel at the time. Now, Josh, I reached out to all 3 board members and the CEO for an interview, but as of yet, no one's agreed to one.
All right, thank you very much, Jody. Now, Governor Abbott wants state lawmakers to now take a look at how ERCOT structures its board.
Just a couple of weeks before this winter storm occurred, they elected some new members. I think is a new chair and vice chair of the board, people from outside the state of Texas. And so part of my charge to the legislature is to restructure the way the board of ERCOT works and to restructure the membership of the board to ensure that the membership is going to be more responsive to the people of Texas.
The governor also said he will ask lawmakers to make it mandatory to winterize generators and the power system, and he's calling for lawmakers to provide funding for both winterization and improvements to the system. People awaiting the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine may have been stuck in the cold.
My second shot was supposed to be scheduled for Wednesday of this week. However, because of the snowstorm, of course, nothing can be done.
How doctors and patients are moving forward after the impact of the winter weather on those looking to be vaccinated.
We've just been driving around and there's a lot of people getting stuck. So we have a truck, we have a rope, so we're pulling them out.
And Texans stepping up to help, the acts of kindness that got folks through the crisis.